الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى نحمده ونستعينه ونثني عليه ونؤمن به ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف بريته ومبلغ رسالاته العبد المؤيد الرسول المسدد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. We begin this first Friday khutbah by reminding all of you and myself to maintain the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll continue inshallah in this first khutbah with the topic of backbiting and the points that the author of the 40 hadith book is going to talk about as it relates to practically eradicating this habit from the lifestyle of the human being. And then afterwards we will move on inshallah in the second khutbah to the tafsir of Surah An-Najm, as well as some other points that inshallah I will explain. When it came to the topic of backbiting, the habit of backbiting, you find that Imam Khomeini or Ayatollah Khomeini mentioned in a number of different situations and scenarios the negative impact and the negative effects that it can have on the human being. And he said, if you want to eradicate this from your life, if you want to remove it from your life, well, there's two different steps that one needs to take in this regard. One of those steps is an ilmi step. The other one is an amali step. The ilmi step is a part of the process that has to do with your thought process, the way you think about this act. The amali part has to do with how you try to implement it in your life by practicing to stay away from this habit. So if I want to get myself to eradicate this habit, there is one step of the process that has to do with my thinking, my thought process, my reminding myself, so on and so forth. This is the ilmi aspect of it. Then there's an amali aspect of it on the ground. How do I get myself to start to remove this habit from my lifestyle, which is going to take a lot of practice. These are the two different aspects to this discussion. On the ilmi side of things, he said, if you want to remember, things you have to remember so that you can stay away from this habit are the following. Number one, and this is one we talked about in the previous khutbah, so I'm not going to go over it again. Number one is that you have to remind yourself that when you speak negatively of people in this shape and fashion, people pick up on it. People realize. So when you're doing this backbiting, when you're sharing the secrets of other people, when you mention names, and I'm personally in a situation a lot of times where people do this in my presence, for good or for bad, for whatever reason. When you mention names, and it's those situations when you're not allowed to be mentioning any names, people pick up on this. People realize it. You start to lose credibility in the eyes of those same people that you are speaking to. Those same people you're trying to impress. Those same people you're trying to share information with them that they don't know. They start to distance themselves from you because they know this is how you do things. This is number one that he talked about. Number two, the second thing to remind yourself is that you are going to war with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you're backbiting about this individual, you have this grudge about this individual in your heart. This person that you have this grudge of in your heart, that's pushing you to backbite about them. This dislike that you have in your heart of this person, this hate you have in your heart of this person. This person, though he might have that flaw that you are backbiting about, that you're mentioning about him, but in reality, because he is still under the umbrella of the wilayah and the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is still beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We touched on this in the last khutbah as well, for those who remember. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you have to be kind to your parents, you have to be kind to your siblings, you have to be kind to, your children. He's not talking about some perfect version of these individuals. He's talking about the flawed individual who has all the deficiencies that you already know. That parent of yours who has certain habits, that child of yours who has certain habits, that spouse of yours who has certain negative habits. With all of those negative habits, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, this person is near and dear to me, so it has to be near and dear to you as well. This is how it works. And this is especially a discussion that goes further when it comes to parents. Because when it comes to parents, they've lived longer than us. The assumption typically is that because they've had more time, they should have been able to remove some of their negative habits. These negative habits could be all sorts of things. Sometimes a parent might have a negative habit. Their negative habit, for example, is that they're very dismissive. Anything you bring to them. Oh no, it's not what you think. You're young, this is what you think. This is a negative habit a parent might have. Sometimes that negative habit is being very short-tempered. Yes. Sometimes that negative habit is being very negative. Everything you bring to them, they always see the negative in it. This is all possible. And your assumption and my assumption is that, well, this person has lived 20, 30 years more than me. So my assumption is they should have more of a chance to work on themselves, to remove these things from their lives. Whether they have or they haven't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says you have to get along with this person. It's not easy. It's not easy. Especially as the parents, they climb in age. It's not easy. It's difficult. Same thing with the spouse. Same thing with the children. The children have their own challenges as well. In all of these scenarios, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about that flawed individual who has those negative habits, and still he's beloved in the eyes of God. So still he has rights upon you. Not the perfect believer who's amazing and he's perfect and he's like the prophet and he had a smile that was worth $1 trillion, yes? And he used to dress in a perfect way and his akhlaq was perfect. Yeah, that one, of course. Everyone who spends time with the prophet is going to enjoy his time with the prophet. And there's no doubt about that. Yes. The people we deal with are not prophets. People we deal with, me and you, we're full of flaws. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has still said, this person is beloved in my eyes. That spouse of yours who does that really annoying thing that you've been telling them for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And sometimes they even have agreed that what they're doing is wrong and they still do it. That spouse is beloved in the eyes of God. Though this negative habit is a negative habit, as a whole, this human being is beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because he's still under the umbrella of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is very important. You take this in a husband and wife relationship, in a family, in relatives, and in the grandest scale, in a community. This applies in all of these different situations. Where are we getting this from? Take a look at these lines. When the Prophet raised the hand of our beloved Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi salamuhu alayhi, he raised his hand on the day of Ghadir, and he said this khutbah. Of course, you know, we all know this khutbah with all of its details. All the details and the longer version of the khutbah is not something that is necessarily accepted in all schools of thought. The khutbah itself is, yes, there's no doubt about that. There's longer versions, there are shorter versions of the khutbah that have been narrated in books of history, yes. The foundation of the khutbah, the main part of the khutbah, the part where the Prophet raised the hand of the Imam and he said he is the Mawla and so on and so forth, yes, this is agreed upon in all schools of thought, there's no doubt about it. It's mutawatir, as we say, yes, there's no doubt about that. The other details, when you look at the khutbahs that we are recited within the Shia school of thought, there's a longer version of it. In some books, it's not that longer version. It's a shorter version, so on and so forth. But the fundamentals that are important for us are there in mutawatir. Everyone agrees on it. There's a couple lines of this that even famous scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah and people who are very conservative in their approach, they also have not ever come to dispute that the Prophet said this. Okay, one of those lines is the famous line of Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. This is even someone like him would say, yes, the Prophet said this. Mutawatir, there's no doubt about it, yes. At a second level, what is also mutawatir is a line that the Prophet mentioned immediately after he mentioned this line. And I'm going to mention this and explain how it connects to the topic we're discussing. Because immediately when the Prophet said this person is the Mawla, he's the person in charge, the person you're supposed to look up to, so on and so forth, yes, he does a dua immediately afterwards. This dua that's immediately afterwards, this line, is also mutawatir. All schools of thought agree. The Prophet said this. Now, however you want to interpret it, separate discussion. But everyone agrees the Prophet said this. What did he say? How does it relate to our discussion here? He said, this person is your Mawla. Then afterwards, he turned to people and he did a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Allahumma wali man wala. Oh Allah, you take as a friend whoever takes him as a friend. Yes. You have love and affection for whoever has love and affection for him. Whoever takes him as his authority, you also take over his authority as well. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? How does it relate to the discussion we were having? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you come under this umbrella, then you are automatically beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now you come under this umbrella, someone like you might have 2 negative habits, someone like me might have 15. That's true. You have less negative habits than me. less negative flaws than me, yes? It doesn't matter. You've come under this umbrella. You are part of those that the Prophet told Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be friends with those who are friends with him. What does this mean? You came under this umbrella of submitting yourself to the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That spouse of yours is beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That community member that you disagree with on a majority of issues is beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if he's wrong, even if what he's doing is wrong, those are still wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying that those things are still wrong. But this person is now. This is the categorization that the Prophet made. Yes? We divide our community into a lot of different shapes and forms. Yes? The categorization that the Prophet said is what? He said, listen, wa alaikum salam. He said, either you fall under this umbrella or you don't. Oh Allah, if someone falls under this umbrella, Allahumma wali man wala. Oh Allah, you're going to love him. You're going to have affection towards him. You're going to have that authority over him as well. If he doesn't, yes, wa'adi man ada. Someone comes out of animosity towards this person, towards the Ahlul Bayt, then yes. See, this is the categorization that the Prophet made. The categorization that the Prophet made was not, if he's perfect, I love him. If he's not perfect, I don't love him anymore. If he's perfect, then, oh Allah, you should love him and all this kind of stuff. If he has negative flaws, then we don't deal with it. This is not the categorization the Prophet made. He said, waliman wala. This is why in our ziyarat, in our du'as, particularly this ziyarah that we recited not too long ago, ziyaratul arba'een, we recite these lines. We say, Assalamu ala waliyillahi wa habibih. Assalamu ala khalilillahi wa najibih. If you continue, then it comes to this line. Allahumma, oh Allah, inni ushhiduka. I take you as my witness. Anni, that I, waliyun liman wala. I am friends with whoever has this love and affection for this third imam. This is the categorization. Baba, some of those people who are lovers of this imam do wrong things. They commit sins. They commit big sins. Yes, those things are still sins, and that person is still, in terms of himself, beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You yourself said what? In anni waliyun liman wala. The one who takes him as a point of authority, yes, my relationship with him is going to be a special relationship. You're the one who says this stuff. You're the one who recites these ziyarat and dua. Okay, bismillah. This relative of yours who has these negative habits, he is waliyun liman wala. He is waliyun to the Ahlul Bayt. So that means he's wali to you too. You have to be kind to him. You have to be nice to him. You have to be compassionate towards him as well. This is the categorization that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made. Not the categorization you and I make. If I like you, I like you. If I don't like you, then you have problems. This is the categorization we make. The moment they come under this umbrella, they are beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I understand this, then when I sit to backbite around this person and about this person, and I have that dislike in my heart towards this person, then that doesn't make sense anymore. This is a contradiction. Because I'm hating, disliking a person who's beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This doesn't work. You cannot claim to be a friend of Allah and dislike the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not possible. This is a characteristic of the munafiqeen. The Quran talks about it. It says if you want to know who the munafiqeen are, they are the ones who love the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they are the ones who have dislike for the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who are these friends? These friends are that same spouse of yours, that child of yours, that relative of yours. These are all the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are all people that are beloved in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their negative attributes and their flaws and so on and so forth. This is from an ilmi aspect. He moves on to the amali aspect. He says from an amali perspective, the thing that you need to do to eradicate this habit from your life is every time it comes up, you have to go against your desires. You have to push back. Every time you push back, this is words of Imam Khomeini, not my words, because this is a big claim. He says every time you push back, it will get easier the next time. And every time you allow shaitan to come forward, he's going to make it more difficult for you next time. And in order to get you on a practical level, to be able to push back, he has certain considerations. certain steps that need to be taken. Amongst those steps that need to be taken, that I will inshallah leave for next week, is this. That you just have to stop talking about other people's lives so much. You have to find something else to talk about. You have to, and talk about the weather, I don't know. Talk about the rain. You have to get into the habit of not caring so much about this person's life and that person's life and this person's children and this person's relationship with their spouse and all this kind of stuff. Because as we'll explain, he says, sometimes it's halal for you to talk about some of these aspects. You know, some aspects of people's lives are open. They're in the public. And because they're in the public, every marja will tell you it's allowed for you to talk about it. If it's in the public, it's in the public. This person has been separated from their wife or husband. Everyone already knows. Can you talk about it? Technically, you can talk about it if everyone already knows. Okay, no problem. But once you start talking about this, then of course you're going to ask, well, whose fault do you think it was? I think it was this person's fault. Why do you think it's the person's fault? Oh, because this one time, this person came and they said this and they said that. And oh, so everyone knew about the divorce, for example. Did everyone know about all the background information that you're offering to? No, they didn't know about that. This is how ghaibat comes to be. Ghaibat comes from a point of discussing the lives of other people. If you don't sit there and discuss the lives of other people who are not present, then there will never ever be any room for you to even venture into the field of ghaibat to begin with. So we'll talk about this more next week, inshallah. But the main idea is you have to just learn to not be so concerned with the lives of other people. You have to be more concerned with yourself, your plans, your life, and how you decide to go about the many struggles and concerns that you should have about your own life. What are the struggles you have yourself? You have 1,000 struggles too. Let's discuss those struggles instead of discussing the struggles of another person. And there's more to this topic, inshallah. Next week will be our final week on the topic of backbiting. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. ثم أصلي وأسلم على نجيبه وجليله وحافظ سره الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل وسلم على علي أمير المؤمنين وفاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وعلى سبطي نبي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في أرضك صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. We begin the second khutbah by reminding all of you and myself to maintain the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We reached verse number 27 from Surah An-Najm. And the Quran was discussing the idea of how there are individuals who make claims about the faith, who make claims about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to do on the Day of Judgment, where in reality there is no truth to the claims that they are making. For those who remember, we discussed this. There are those, they will tell you that yes, because we come from this ethnicity, on the Day of Judgment we'll be completely fine. There's nothing to worry about. And this is of course something that even in our own school of thought from time to time we will see as well. Individuals who claim to be entering into heaven, for example. Recite a salawat, please. They will claim that yes, I'm a follower of Ahlul Bayt. That means I'm untouchable. I'm invincible. I can do what I want. Yes, I might get punished a little bit and then I'm good. And this is exactly what Bani Israel during the time of the Prophet used to say. They used to say, listen, we're chosen people of God. So a little bit we might go through and, a little slap on the wrist. But other than that, ayyaman ma'duda, and we'll be on our way to heaven. And the Quran responded to them and said, Tilka amaniyuhum. These are their wishes. They've taken their wish list and then they said, this is what Islam says. This is what the religion says. This is what this says. When you want to attribute something to the religion, the Quran is saying, you have to be very careful. And these are where these verses are going. Verse 27 says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ. Those who don't believe in the akhirah, they're not afraid of the accountability on the day of judgment. لَيُسَمُّونَ الْمَلَائِكَةَ تَسْمِيَةَ الْأُنْثَى. They are the ones who say that the angels are the daughters of God. Why does God care if someone calls the angels the daughters of God or the children of God or whatever? Why does he even care about this? God's not like us, right? Someone says something about you, it ruins your life, it creates problems for you, all that. You care. You say, you shouldn't say this about me, it's going to create problems for God. It's not going to create problems for God. Why is it so important for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they say, oh, these angels are the daughters of God? He says, no, don't say this. The verses of the Quran say, the people, the disbelievers, they used to say, ittakhadha Allahu walada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken a child. And the Quran says that because of what they are saying, it is close that the heavens and earth yatafattarna, they're going to explode and implode. Why? Why? This guy said God has a child. Why is it such a big deal? Why does God care about this so much anyways? He says, these disbelievers, they say, yes, the angels are the daughters of God. Why does he care about this anyways? He cares about it because when you open this door of anyone coming forth and attributing anything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will be nothing left of the religion anymore. You open this door, anyone comes and says anything, and I'm going to explain how this happens even in our own communities. You open this door where this person can give his opinion about the faith in any shape or form he likes. When you open this door, what happens? Over time, this religion will be altered to an extent that when people look at it from far away, they dislike it so much, they say, we don't even want to have anything to do with this religion. And this has already happened with some of the other faiths that you have out there. You open this door of anyone coming and giving their own understanding of the faith. What happens over time? Over time, this guy will come and say, listen, by the way, you don't even have to follow the law of Moses and so on and so forth. Just as long as you accept this person as a savior in your heart, khalas, you're done, you're good to go. And he will be so much more influential on the believers of that faith than the prophet of that faith ever was. Why? How did we end up here? We ended up here because you opened the door to anyone attributing anything to this religion, this faith. Islam is very serious about this. Islam is very strict on this, and for good reason. So when you sit there and say, well, I think this is like this, Islam says, no, you don't have the right to just say that. Take a look at what the next verse says. وَمَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. When they speak, they're not speaking from knowledge. What knowledge? They're not speaking from knowledge that this is actually what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to believe. No, they're guessing. They go based on their wishes, their desires. وَمَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. They go based off of guessing. وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ. This is the one line I want you to remember. وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. And when you sit there and you guess, and you just attribute things to the faith, لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. It has no value. So what does this mean for you and I? What this means for you and I is that when we want to attribute things to the faith, when we're explaining the faith to our children, to our loved ones, whatever the case might be, you and I don't have the right to take something that we don't have certainty about. Say, this is what Islam says about this issue. Dress code in Islam. What's Islam's opinion on dress code? Oh, it's okay. As long as you have a good heart, the rest doesn't matter. So what's your reasoning for this? Where'd you get this from? What's the proof for it? We need to sit down, we need to discuss this. You can't just attribute something to the faith. Oh yeah, when you show up on the day of judgment, God is so forgiving, He will forgive everybody. Don't even worry about it. Where did you get this from? Where did it come from? Someone sits there on the other side and says, on the day of judgment, things are going to be so difficult that you as a believer, you're going to regret that you ever lived your life, because they're going to ask you about every little thing. It's going to be so difficult. You're going to be like, I wish I never lived. Where did you get this from? Where did the Quran say that if you did things properly, you're going to show up on that day and you're going to regret everything you ever did? Where did the Quran say this? These are all discussions we need to have. You say something is halal, you say, okay, where are you getting this from? You say something is haram, you're not allowed to do it. Where did you get that from? It's on both sides. Yes, you have the Muslims who are easygoing on everything. You have the Muslims who are really, really strict on everything. And to both of them, you have to ask, where are you getting this from? Because if you're just attributing things to the faith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. When you just throw things out there and you say, well, this is what Islam is saying, you need proof for it. You need to be able to present your proof for it. إِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. When you attribute things to your belief system, when you attribute things to Ahlul Bayt, Imam Hussein said this, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi. The third Imam said this. I can give you real examples. I don't want to go into real examples. The third Imam said this. Where did he say this? How did he say this? Did you ever look at the other things he ever said? The third Imam said, the Prophet said, this is a real example. The Prophet said, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to judge you, He doesn't look at your wealth or the way you dress. This is a real hadith. He looks at your hearts. So Islam doesn't care about this stuff. The only thing Islam cares about is your heart. But did you look at the other thousands of things the Prophet said? Or are you just guessing? Yes? You're going with dhan. Dhan means you're not sure about it. But you just say, yeah, this is what Islam says about this issue. This is scary, because when you open this door, what happens? Things are added to the faith and added and added and added. Over 200 years, you look back on this faith. You're like, this faith is not even close to what it used to be. Are we there or we're not there? I'll leave that question up to you. Something for you and I to observe. Does this faith, if someone walked into this faith and they saw the way we practice it, I'm not talking about the faith itself, the way we practice it, would someone really be able to track this back to how the Ahlul Bayt used to do things or not? A lot of us would argue no. A lot of us would argue things have been changed so much for different factors, different reasons, that by the time you look at it 1400 years or maybe 1200 years after the Imams, things are very different now. This faith presents itself in a very different way. And Islam is very strict on this. This is why in Islam, the concept and the idea of bid'ah and innovation is so severely and harshly negated. We're all going to pray. After this Surah Al-Fatiha that I recite, before I move on to the second surah, if you're in a Sunni masjid, everyone is going to say Ameen. Yes? If you're in a Shia masjid, you're not going to say Ameen. You're going to say, if you say Ameen, this is bid'ah, it's innovation, the salat is batil. No? All of our maraja will tell you this. All of the maraja, when you look into their books of rules, they say salat has a number of mubtilat, a number of things that make salat batil. One of them is saying Ameen after Surah Al-Fatiha. Okay. The same one, this person says, you say no, this is batil. You after Surah Al-Fatiha, the same marja who says if you say Ameen, batil, bid'ah, haram, all this kind of stuff, he will say, if you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, mustahab, wonderful, rewarded. So what's the difference? The difference is, one, you have reason for it. You have hadith for it that tells you should say this. The other one, based at least on our understanding in our school of thought, Islam has told you, no, you're not allowed to say this. It's the only difference. You're not allowed to sit there and say, well, they look like the same to me. Just some words you're saying. They both have wonderful meaning. Yes, Ameen means, oh Allah, istajib du'ai, accept my dua. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, you're praising Allah. So what's the difference? The difference is, this one, The faith said you're supposed to say it. The other one, at least in our school of thought, the faith said you are not supposed to say it. Islam is strict on these little things. Why? Because once you open this door, nothing will remain of your faith anymore. Once you open this door to take things and add things and guess when it comes to the faith, وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. It has no value. And here you are just guessing left and right. This idea of being careful what you attribute to the faith on small issues, is it haram, mustahab, makruh? You know, someone came up to me the other day, said, Sheikh, this person wants to do this. I don't want to mention the exact example of what they mentioned. This person wants to do this. My parents said this is makruh. You're not allowed to do it, or it's better not to do it. It's heavily makruh. You definitely should stay away from this. You look into the books, it's not makruh at all. But culturally, this is the understanding. This is like off limits. Yes, this is a situation we're dealing with. If you allow for the faith to continue like this over time, you'll end up with a situation where instead of one God, you have like 50 gods all of a sudden. And that might be something that you and I would say, no, that'll never happen. Baba, it's happened in other faiths. It can happen to Islam as well. Islam in a different way. Islam has a Quran that will always protect it. So inshallah for Islam will never happen. But Islam is very strict on this issue. On small issues, on bigger issues as well. What is Islam's approach when it comes to this issue? You and I can't sit there and just guess. No, if you attribute something to Imam Hussein, if you attribute something to the sixth Imam, oh, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, for example, he said this, salawatullahi salamu alayhi. We need to have proof for it, brothers and sisters. Oh, well, there is this hadith. When you have hadith, brothers and sisters, is just the beginning of the discussion. I'll say that one more time. When you have hadith for something, it's the beginning of the discussion, not the end of the discussion. It's the beginning of it. Then you have to go look, see this hadith, reliable, not reliable, which book is it related in? Does it go against Quran? Does it go against history? Does it go against intellect? Does it go against other narrations from the same Imam? Hadith is the beginning of the discussion, not the end of the discussion. It's the beginning of the discussion. We need to have proof for what we say. And I'll end with this. This is why, brothers and sisters, and you go home today, you can check this yourself. If you open any book of Islamic laws, of any marja, especially the Arabic ones and the Farsi ones, you flip, before it gets to the table of contents, before it gets to anything else, you will find, usually has a stamp of that marja, or their stamp of approval, and then you will find this line, that if you act upon the things that you find in this book, you will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It never says the rules are in this book are exactly the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because this marja knows he's human. Even though he's going based off Quran and Hadith, yes? But in his understanding of Quran and Hadith, he knows he's human. So even then, he doesn't want to attribute something to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You get the difference? He says, if you act upon this book of laws, you will be rewarded. Rewarded why? Because this is our best understanding of what Quran and Hadith are telling. But even he will not sit there and claim that this is it and I didn't make any mistakes. He will never sit there and say, this is the book of laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted from us. No, he said, this is our best understanding. Yes? Our best interpretation of what we have from. They are fearful to even attribute something to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is it left and right you come across this marja says, oh, ihtiyat wajib, you should do this, ihtiyat wajib, you should do that. Why? Why does he even bother with ihtiyat wajib? Why does he bother with obligatory precaution? Why? Because he's not sure. And when he's not sure, unlike you and I, who we just sit there and guess, say, no, you should do this. No, you shouldn't do this. You know what he says? He says, ihtiyat wajib. I'm not sure. Let's take precaution, but I'm not going to attribute anything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see this? This is how we're supposed to go about things. That's not how we do things. The way we do things is, we see one hadith say, this Islam says this about this issue. No, we have to be very careful how we attribute things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes you attribute something to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is false because you're guessing, because you're not sure, you don't have certainty. And to you, it seems like not a big deal. And the Quran says the heavens and the earth are imploding because of what you said. تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ يَتَفَطَّرْنَ. The heavens and the earth are imploding because of the things that these guys are attributing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You and I have to be very careful what we attribute to our faith, what we attribute to the Ahlul Bayt, and we have to learn from our scholars who are very, very careful that when they wanted to say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something, even when they extracted the laws in their books, they say you should act on this because this is our best guess, our best interpretation, but I am not even going to claim that this is the word of God directly, that these are the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. This is the approach that we need to take in this regard. In the last 5 minutes that we have, I want to talk a little bit about also the project, the construction project that is coming up that we presented on a week before the birthday of the Prophet. I want to talk a little bit about, just a couple minutes, about the vision for this community center, brothers and sisters. Typically in our communities, and I'm speaking in the context of North America, typically in the context of our communities, the Islamic center is a place of worship and that's it. You come, you do your Jumaa, and that's it. Yes. The night of Qadr you will come, you do your acts of worship, and that's it. Muharram you come, and that's it. This is not the role that an Islamic center is supposed to play. The role is this and much, much more. There are many communal needs that we have. Needs of the community, this is where they need to be addressed. If you look at the talk we had in Ramadan, when we talked about Medina being the home of the Prophet, away from his main home, we talked about how the Prophet, the first thing he did was establish masjid. Not one, he built two. Why? Because the only thing the Prophet cared about is people praying? No. Because he saw the masjid as playing a much bigger role than just a place where people come and pray and that's it. He saw the masjid as being the root of all of the other good that he wanted to spread within this community. That's why when he came to Medina, the first thing he established was what? First one was Masjid al-Quba, and then later on, the masjid that he had in Medina. Because he knows from here, this is where everything is going to begin. This is the role of an Islamic center, masjid, whatever the name we want to put on it. This is the role of a center like this. That's how it's supposed to be viewed. And that is the vision that we have for the community center. It's not just a place where you come and pray. It's a place where you come and pray. It's a place where you come and play. It's a place where you come and socialize. It is a place where you come and learn. It's a place for all sorts of functions. Yes, this is the direction that we are moving towards. I want to draw your attention just this week, with the limited facility that we have, that has no outdoor area, has no place for the kids to run around and play and enjoy their time. It has no place for proper socialization and grabbing a cup of chai or tea or so on. With just this, every week, brothers and sisters, 3-4 programs of diverse nature is happening. Yes, and I know sometimes in the WhatsApp group it goes so fast. I've talked to community members, say, Sheikh, this happened to me just 2 nights ago. Someone said, Sheikh, we should really do something like this. I said, Baba, it's planned for like a week from now. Did you check the flyer? He said, no, I don't have time to check the flyers. I said, well, you have to check we're already doing this. Just this week, yes? Last night we had the Mizan class with Sheikh Amin. Today we are having Jumaa. Tomorrow the flu shots program is happening. Tomorrow night the sisters' Friendsgiving potluck is happening. Sunday school is coming up. Next week we have, outside of Jumaa and the Thursday night program, we have S'mores and Scholars happening. Saturday morning, the Mizan course is happening. Saturday evening, the Thanks to Allah potluck is happening. The other one is for the whole community. On Sunday, the Sunday school is happening, where you guys, if you don't know, every corner of this facility we are using. There's no room in this facility we're not using. And we've already had to turn away a bunch of families. If there was any other corner of this facility I could use, brothers and sisters, and we could use, we would plan and strategize to also use that corner of the facility. Many parents have come to me and said, can we have sessions for the parents while the kids are in class, for example? Ideally, yes. But when you're running Sunday school here, and one class is happening here, and one class is happening on this side, and all of the rooms that were designated are all being used at the same time, well, where are you going to hold this classroom? Yes? These are all potentials and possibilities, but the facility, of course, doesn't allow for it, yes? And then, of course, the second part of the course that is happening. There is a lot happening already. With the new facility, it will open our hands in a lot of different ways. Yes, every event you want to have, it's going to require volunteers. It's going to require brothers and sisters stepping up. So I'm saying it with that asterisk in mind, yes, that we're going to need that help. But if you have the facility and you can strategize and plan, there's quite a bit you can do. And it's not necessarily, oh, instead of one Jummah, let's have 10 Jummahs every week. Let's have 10 lectures every week. No, you don't want Sheikh Mahdi to be keeping you bored the whole time. But there are diverse natures of programs. Another one I didn't mention is Monday, there was the sisters' yoga class that was happening right here. On Wednesday, there was another sisters' fitness class happening. So this is all part of the plan to use the facility in the most efficient way as we possibly can. With a limited facility, there's a whole lot that's already happening here. Inshallah, with a full-fledged facility, there's a lot more. With your help, with your support, with your volunteering, there's a lot more, inshallah, that we can do for our community. I will end with this last point. A lot of times, brothers and sisters come to me. They say, Sheikh, all I see is events for youth. All I see, you know, someone told me this a couple days ago. Only thing I ever see, it says 17 to 28. I don't know if this is your complaint as well. They say, all I see is this. What about this? What about the younger ones? What about the older ones? There are things happening for the elders too. They just have to attend and show up, inshallah. Yes? The Mizan class that happens on Thursday nights on the topic of ijtihad and taqleed is designed for adults. It's a very deep discussion. It's not necessarily a discussion that a 15-year-old would necessarily enjoy. Yes? Well, that's something that's designed for the elders in our community, or the adults in our community. The Mizan course that's happening, not this weekend, next weekend. This is an 8-hour course that's happening, brothers and sisters. 150 rulings as it relates to the typical salat that we do. Salatul Musafir, Salatul Jumaa, Salatul Qadha. I don't know, Salatul Qadha, you have to make up for your parents. All of these different aspects of salat we're covering. Well, this is not for your average 13-year-old. This is for the adults. Yes. So there are events happening as well for different age groups. We had events happening for middle schoolers very recently. For high schoolers, we're planning another one that's coming up very soon. The idea being that with the limited time that we have had, limited resources that we've had, and limited facility that we've had, we're really trying our best to plan and strategize for different demographics of the community. And inshallah, this is the importance of the facility and the project that is being worked on, that it will open our hands a whole lot more. What's better than me having my child come to the program, and maybe I want to take part in the program, maybe my spouse wants to take part in the program, and my child has a place to play and to run around and to socialize with other children who have a belief system of his own. He'll have a chance to socialize with others who don't have the same belief system. He's already exposed to that. He'll have a chance this time to socialize with those who have the same belief system, who he can feel confident around, who he can share values with. What's greater than this? And this is exactly why the project is being put together. When we say different programs, it doesn't mean different lectures. Trust me, I don't even like to lecture much. Right? The idea is to plan and strategize, to see what are the needs in the community, and come up with a diverse plan of programs that can attend to the different needs of our community, inshallah. Seniors and the events that we have on those, I won't go into that as the time is up, and I think I already went over time. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجه. صل على محمد وعلى محمد. صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجه. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. صلى على محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض، الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا، بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. الله أكبر. بحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم اجعلنا أقرب من تقرب إليك، وأوجه من توجه إليك، وأنجح من سألك وتضرع إليك. اللهم اجعلنا ممن كأنه يراك إلى يوم القيامة التي فيه نلقاك، ولا تمتنا إلا على رضاك. اللهم واجعلنا ممن أخلص لك بعمله وأحبك في جميع خلقك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، واغفر لنا مغفرة حتما لا نقترف بعدها ذنبا ولا نكتسب خطيئة ولا. اللهم صل على محمد وآله صلاة نامية دائمة زاكية متتابعة متواصلة مترادفة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Mu'mineen, just a few announcements regarding upcoming programs and events. Alhamdulillah, like the Sheikh mentioned, we've got quite a few programs happening here. Starting with tomorrow, we've got the COVID vaccine and flu booster shots scheduled for tomorrow at 11 a.m. For those who are interested, please register online. The link for registration should be present in the WhatsApp announcement and in the email that was sent out. Another reminder about tomorrow evening, 6:30 p.m., the Dallas Youth Girls Sisters Friendsgiving for sisters ages 14 through 28. Again, this is an RSVP mandatory event. Please register if you wish to join. Upcoming week, inshallah, we will have our Thursday's Mizan program that will begin with Salatul Isha at 7 p.m. and followed by Dua Kumail, and then the Mizan Advanced Studies session with Sheikh Amin on the topic Ijtihad and Taqleed. We also are having Z Fitness workout sessions for sisters here at CFK, Mondays and Wednesdays until December the 10th. The seats are limited. Please register, and the registration link is also present in the WhatsApp announcement. A reminder about Friday, November 18th. We will be having our 2022 annual Thanks to Allah potluck dinner here at CFK. Once again, this event is also RSVP mandatory. Please register for the event. Another reminder for the new Advanced Ruling of Salaat course, the Mizan Advanced Ruling of Salaat course here at CFK, led by Sheikh Mahdi, for November 19th and 20th. Registration and information is present on the website mizaninstitute.org/Dallas. As always, event details are posted on our webpage, cfkdfw.org, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and our WhatsApp group, and QR codes for that are also present on the walls here at CFK. Jazakallah to all our sustaining members, donors, volunteers, and program sponsors for your contributions. If you are not a member yet, please consider becoming one by contacting our membership director, Brother Asif Patel. For opportunities to donate, sponsor programs, or help behind the scenes, please speak to myself or any of the volunteers. Let us now recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumeen of our Niyaz sponsor, Marhum Mukhtar Ali Makhraj, Marhuma Rubab Banu bint Haji Nanji, Marhum Shabab Ali Ghulam Hussain, the marhumeen of Brother Sadiq Makhraj and family, and let us all include our marhumeen and the marhumeen of the Ummah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.